very opposite to my guest tonight, Timothy Good, a man you perhaps haven't heard of. The book he has written, Alien Liaison, The Ultimate Secret, is a book that has really caught my imagination. Timothy is with me. He's not a crank. He's not a sensation seeker. He has written in his book, Timothy, you contend that aliens have landed on this planet, have collaborated with at least one government that you know of, the U.S. government, and whether we believe that or not, at the very least, it is clear from the book that governments, Soviet, U.S. and British, are covering up something. We're not quite sure what they're covering up.
Absolutely. Let's begin with the involvement of the intelligence community. In the United States, that involves agencies such as the CIA and FBI, which I think we've all heard of, and other less well-known agencies such as the Defense Intelligence Agency, Atomic Energy Commission, National Security Agency, Air Force, Army, and Naval Intelligence. And with the exception of the United States Air Force, all those agencies denied for decades, since the late 1940s, any serious involvement in UFO research. Now, under the Freedom of Information Act, tens of thousands of documents on official UFO reports have been released under the Freedom of Information Act in the United States. And on their own admission, all those agencies fully admit that they are withholding thousands more documents in the interests of national security. And the fact of the matter is that since 1950, if not earlier, the subject was definitely classified much higher than the hydrogen bomb. It is the most sensitive issue within the United States intelligence community and the intelligence community.
If this is true, what's in this book, this is of profound significance. But what people might find difficult to believe is why it hasn't come to light until now. It's been going on for how long?
It's been going on in the post-war era since about 1946. Actual sightings of UFOs go back thousands of years. They've been recorded in the Brahmin records. But certainly some of the biblical stories indicate that there has been some type of liaison. And a number of religious writers, including Dr. Barry Downing, who's also a physicist, are convinced that there has been an extraterrestrial liaison since time immemorial.
Well, let's talk about the post-war ones, if you like. And you say that governments, you present evidence in the book to say that governments, it's 38 levels above top secret. You present evidence in the book that says that governments have been at times collaborating. There have been crashes, or these aliens have willfully come to Earth. And in fact, as of 1988, there's one quote in the book, there is at least one alien working with the U.S. government.
It has been confirmed by a physicist that the United States government has actually established contact with extraterrestrials. This claim was made on American television in October 1988 during a 2-hour documentary on the subject, which was shown also in the Soviet Union. Or at least there was collaboration with the Soviet Union on the program simultaneously when it was broadcast. And it has been shown in a number of other countries, and at least 2 intelligence agents appeared on this program and confirmed that there had been contact, it had been established. Furthermore, a number of people have now come forward indicating that an actual film showing aliens landing was taken at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964.
Have you seen this film?
I haven't seen the film. I'm trying to get it at the moment for an Anglo-American documentary, which is going to be, I think, one of the most expensive documentaries ever made on any subject, and it won't go out until late 1992, early 1993. But we are trying to obtain this movie film, which was shot on 16mm. The existence of the film has been confirmed for me by Bob Emenegger, an American film producer. It's also been confirmed by Paul Shartle, who was head of security at Norton Air Force Base. And he's seen the film. He's absolutely convinced it shows the real thing. It's not just theatrical or training footage or anything like that.
We've got lots to talk about, but what if these aliens are here? Where are they, and what are they doing?
Well, I haven't the faintest idea. Some people have suggested that there is a kind of liaison going on. I personally think it's highly likely. There's no question in my mind that the United States authorities have acquired a number of extraterrestrial vehicles since the late 1940s.
UFOs.
UFOs. There have been some accidents, crashes, debris has been found, but also some craft have been found in remarkably good condition. I have spoken with a physicist who was working on one of these recovered craft. His clearance level, to give you some idea of the level of secrecy, was 38 levels above top secret. All he knew about was the propulsion system. That was what his speciality was. He also witnessed this craft being test flown within a limited range at a highly secret test site in the Nevada desert. These claims would seem outrageous were it not for the fact that we now have clear evidence from at least two former intelligence chiefs, including Admiral Bobby Ray Inman, who is a former director of the National Security Agency, as well as a deputy director of the CIA. In addition, Rear Admiral Sumner Shapiro has confirmed that the United States authorities have actually acquired extraterrestrial vehicles. This information was given to a good friend of mine and colleague, Mr. Bob Exler, who is a former NASA mission specialist. He had these extraordinary conversations with these people, one of which we have on tape. We were warned by Admiral Inman's executive assistant that any public disclosure of the information that he had acquired from these people would be in violation of American national secrecy laws. I decided to push ahead, together with my publisher, Century, obviously, after legal advice, to call their bluff, because although they are threatening charges under official secrecy laws in the States, at the same time there is a plan, and I know this to be a fact because I have personally been involved with it to a limited extent. It's known as the Cosmic Journey Project. This is a plan by the United States government, together with NASA and Rockwell International, to have a huge international exhibition of the past, present, and future space program.
That hasn't yet gone ahead.
It hasn't gone ahead yet. It was due to go ahead last year, but this is going to feature an actual extraterrestrial craft and or a body. Now, this information, again, sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it has been confirmed for me by a number of people, including Bob Exler, who spoke with a number of the astronauts who are connected with this project, and I've mentioned their names in my book. He also spoke with a general at the Pentagon who indicated that they had a number of vehicles and bodies to choose from. Their main concern was public perception. How is the public going to react?
Well, this is it. It's a lot for us to take.
That is what they're concerned about.
It is a hell of a lot for us to take, isn't it? If this is true, and there's certain evidence that something shady is going on here, there's a cover-up about something, that is very clear. But it's absolutely astounding.
Of course it is.
Why? I'm going to play a record in a second. These aliens, if they have been coming here for thousands of years, and if we have, as governments, known about it since the war, why are they coming here? Are they tourists? Are they examining us? Are they coming here to help us? What's the short answer to that before I play a record?
Well, to take the last point, I have no idea why they're coming here. I think there could be many reasons. There could be different species. Some of them may well have a vested interest in what we're doing on this planet. Some of them may even have seeded life on this planet. Who knows? That's one possibility I take very seriously. But to go back to the first part of your question, when you say governments have been covering up, very few people actually in governments know what is going on, because this information is so compartmented that even I very much doubt whether anyone in the cabinet in Her Majesty's government has the slightest idea that all these things are going on. It's only within the
Alien Liaison, The Ultimate Secret is the book we're concentrating on tonight. Timothy Good, the author, is with me. We have established, and it's fairly clear, whatever is going on, there is a big cover-up about something. 38 categories above top secret, indeed. Right, I'm going to indulge you, Timothy. It's no use being accusatory and saying, well, this is unlikely, this could never happen. I think more productive will be to go along with your line, just say that these aliens have landed and they are here, which the book is to believe is entirely likely. Why are governments so sensitive about us knowing?
I think there are many different aspects to this problem. There are defense implications. First of all, for governments to openly acknowledge that there are alien vehicles coming into our airspace against whom we have inadequate defense should the need arise is a very risky thing to admit. Also, there are many disturbing factors. People have occasionally disappeared in aircraft, for example. If they were to admit that, nobody would want to fly anymore, at least commercially. there are many other
It's a small risk to take, though, isn't it?
Yes, but there are many other baffling aspects to the subject which I'm quite sure governments have not even begun to grasp yet. Also, from a defense standpoint, according to my information, the technology that is used to propel some of the craft that have been acquired could be used for a defense purpose, such as the making of a super bomb, and that is being looked at, unfortunately.
Do you know that's being looked at? Is that just more conjecture?
This comes from Bob Lazar, a physicist who claims to have worked on one of these recovered vehicles. He worked on the propulsion unit of one of these devices, and he says that everything is being looked at from a defense point of view. So obviously that's not something you would want people to know about.
But the American government can't be happy about you writing a book like this, or somebody like Bob Lazar shooting his mouth off right, left, and centre, can they?
That's true, but on the other hand, I'm calling their bluff, since I know for a fact that they do have plans to exhibit an actual alien craft or a body in a cryogenic chamber. This is the Cosmic Journey project.
Yeah. Which you've touched on. So here on 9 o'clock news comes on BBC television, obviously, and the Cosmic Journey project is to display an alien craft. It's going to be more than front page news for a couple of days, isn't it?
It's going to be the story of the millennium.
How are they going to make it? It certainly is. How are they going to get us used to it? How are they going to get our tootsies used to the temperature of the water on this one?
Well, it's going to be very controversial. I suspect that most people examining this craft, perhaps there'll be public access to it. That's one thing that's under consideration at the moment, I understand. Will simply think that it's something being produced in Hollywood, something on the lines of Spielberg. So there will be many people who will refuse to believe it, even if they have hands-on experience. I think other people will become very, very excited. Some people will become worried.
Well, that's the point.
There might be an increase in admissions to mental hospitals.
It's one of the reasons we're not being told the whole story, if there is a whole story to tell us, the fact that these aliens are malevolent.
I think that some of them are dangerous. That's as far as I am prepared to go. Some people have suffered.
What do you mean, as far as you're prepared to go?
Well, I don't know a great deal about this aspect of the subject, but there's no doubt that some people have been seriously injured by close exposure to UFOs and occasionally UFO occupants as well.
They've been treated in very much the way that we might in a laboratory treat a guinea pig.
Yes, and if you look at animal mutilations, for example, well over 10,000 cattle in the United States and Canada, particularly the States, but other countries as well. This is not unique to America by any means. Over 10,000 cattle have been found mutilated in really bizarre circumstances. They've been discovered with no blood in their carcasses, not even splashes of blood around. They have had organs excised, glands, teeth, eyes, and so forth, excised with immaculate precision.
Satanic ritual.
That's been ruled out completely by a number of investigative agencies. The ranchers in many, many states are convinced it's not done by satanic cults because the technology used is much too advanced. It cannot even be duplicated by scientists with using laser surgery techniques.
What the hell are alien beings coming to this planet for and cauterizing our cows?
I've no idea. I've speculated in Alien Liaison that there is a requirement there.
What do you think?
For whatever purpose, I have no idea.
Some hormone or something?
It could be.
What do these aliens look like? 2 legs, 2 arms, eyes, nose, mouth?
In the majority of reports, aliens are described as essentially humanoid in form. Sometimes small. By small, I mean about 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Other times large, sometimes very large. Sometimes robots have been seen. Occasionally, especially with the smaller beings, they have been described as having almond-shaped eyes, very little mouth, very little nose, and hardly any ears.
Not unlike
and
E.T.
Actually, unlike E.T., more close to the depiction of aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. If you remember when they all came out of the craft at the end in that extraordinary scene.
Was that based on fact?
Well, according to my information, the United States government has given some support to Steven Spielberg for the production of both E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I can't prove that yet because I haven't had a chance to talk to
There's a place in your book. Well, there's a place in your book. Well, if he's had certain collusions with the U.S. government, he might be reticent at all.
Yes, I think that's true.
But there's a place in your book you say that President Reagan, when he was obviously president, went to a special White House screening of E.T. and turned round to
Spielberg turned round, or rather, President Reagan turned round to Spielberg at one point in the film and said, there are only 6 people in this room who know how true all this is. Furthermore, Reagan has on about 4 public occasions admitted that nations would begin to cooperate more if they considered the possibility of an extraterrestrial threat.
President Gorbachev, you quote him in the book, the phenomenon of UFOs does exist and it must be treated seriously. President Gorbachev actually said that.
He actually said that last year when questioned by some workers in the Urals. Earlier, Gorbachev admitted that he had discussed the possibility of an extraterrestrial threat with the summit conference in Geneva in 1985, and that they had agreed in principle that if such a threat occurred, they would unite.
It's quite extraordinary. Phyllis Boas, a Brazilian, has an extraordinary story which you quote in the book, and it's verifiable.
Well, it's verifiable in the sense that I spoke to one of the 2 doctors who examined Antonio Villas-Boas following this encounter, and they were convinced that he was suffering from some type of radiation sickness, or at least a cosmic clap.
It turned out to be a bit of cosmic venereal disease.
Yes.
He was taken on board.
He claims to have been taken on board a craft and presented to a naked female. He had intercourse with her.
What was she like?
He describes her
humanoid?
He actually describes her as being rather voluptuous, but he said that the rather strange animal grunts that she made during the procedure...
She's not necessarily an alien.
He said she was definitely alien. There's no question. There were certain differences. But, I mean, these stories are wild, of course, but if you take... For example,
they're cutting off lymphatic glands off our cows and they're extricating semen from our men.
Apparently. Also, blood samples have been taken. I'm very pleased to note that the aliens very sensibly took the precaution of getting a blood sample from Villas-Boas before presenting him to the female. But if you take, for example, a doctor whom I've spoken to, Dr. Diaz, Dr. Leopoldo Diaz, who is or was the executive director of the second largest hospital in Mexico, in Guadalajara. He claims that back in 1976 he actually gave a physical examination to a live extraterrestrial who walked into his office. It's a bizarre tale, but the doctor was so taken aback by this experience that he made a special trip to New York to see a delegation at the United Nations, and I spoke to one of those delegates who confirmed the visit, and they said the man appeared to be very, very sincere, but there was absolutely nothing they could do about it.
Well, what happened? This guy walked in and said, Doctor, I'm feeling a bit off colour.
He asked for a physical examination because he said he travelled a lot. I like that one. In fact, he spoke in Spanish. He spoke the native language of Dr. Diaz. The doctor noticed that there were some peculiarities. Let me hasten to... point out that in every other respect, apart from the ones I'm going to mention, I mean, he looked perfectly normal as a man, except there was very little hair in the pubic area and around the head. His eyes were unusual in that the irises were larger than most human beings, and they were of an odd violet color. He said the skin was almost the color of milk, extremely pale. And when you do a physical examination, you have to obviously take the heart pressure and so forth, which was quite normal. And in asking the age of this man, the alien said that he was 84 years old, which of course astonished the doctor because there were no normal lines of maturity on his face. He imparted a tremendous amount of knowledge of a scientific nature, of a spiritual nature too, which I find very significant. And this is back in 1976. He implied that our planet was due for a lot of problems, connection with pollution, all different types of pollution. And he said that it was time for us to begin to look for new sources of energy, the sort of energy that they utilize to harness forces of energy in
quite
space.
A lot of people were saying that, weren't they? I mean, quite a lot of people were saying that in 1976.
That's possible, yes. But I think it's interesting that this chap apparently confirmed that. And the doctor, to me, seems totally sincere. I think he may have retired recently, but he seems totally sincere.
And you've seen aliens?
Well, I didn't write about this in the book. My publisher thought it would be over the top. But in fact,
so you're speaking for the first time.
I have had some bizarre experiences in my life with people I believe could be from elsewhere. The first experience was in 1963 on the California-Arizona border when I was touring with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. The second experience, which to me was more significant, took place in February 1967 when I was playing in New York at the Carnegie Hall with the London Symphony Orchestra. We were staying at what was then called the Park Sheraton Hotel. And at that time, I was getting very frustrated. My efforts in research weren't leading me anywhere. And I had been told that I should attempt telepathic communication with these beings. I thought, this is absolutely absurd. But people told me that these beings are highly telepathic and that there are some of them living and working on this planet, collaborating with some of our government people. So I sat down in the lobby of the Park Sheraton in the middle of New York. Now, you've got to be careful in hotel lobbies, especially in New York.
Yeah.
People came and went. I was beaming out these thoughts. If there are any of you people in the New York vicinity, please come and sit down next to me and prove it. Well, nothing happened for about half an hour. Finally, this guy comes in. He's about 5'10". He's slightly tanned, very well-proportioned features, sandy-colored hair, straight out of Madison Avenue, immaculately dressed, carrying an attaché case, from which he took the New York Times. He sat down beside me. Everything he did was rather deliberate. He slowly turned the pages and finally folded the newspaper, put it back in his attaché case. I thought, well, why don't I try the experiment? In my mind, I said, right, if you're from elsewhere, would you please take your right index finger and hold it to the right side of your nose? No sooner had I thought that than he did exactly that for quite a while as well. So what did I do? Being English, we hadn't been introduced, so I didn't go any further. It's one of the great regrets in my life, I have to say. I'm only relating the story exactly as it happened. I don't know whether he was an extraterrestrial, but in view of later disclosures from various people who claim to have been working with these people, that they are highly telepathic, I think it's possible that he could have been. Furthermore, it had a profound effect on my life from a spiritual point of view. And I think it led me to become more open about discussing the subject of UFOs, and I began giving public lectures and broadcasts that year.
Alien Liaison, The Ultimate Secret by Timothy Good. Timothy is with me just now. From the British perspective, we've talked about the United States a lot and the obvious cover-up there as regards UFOs or whatever is being covered up. You say that there are more than 3 or 4 people, for example, in Whitehall who are involved in the cover-up.
Well, no. The official position of Her Majesty's government is that they only have about 3 staff in Whitehall who are able to handle inquiries from the public about this subject and deal with reports. But in my own conversations with Ministry of Defence officials, they have admitted the involvement of, for example, the Defence Intelligence Staff, specifically DI-55. In addition, I have spoken to people who have informed me that the Royal Air Force Provost and Security Services, who specialise in policing and security within the Royal Air Force and also counterintelligence, have been involved for many, many years in secretly analyzing the UFO situation. And way back in the 50s, it was revealed that there was a room, 801, in Northumberland Avenue, which housed all the information on UFOs. I've since spoken to some people who have actually been involved in that branch, and they said that that room was locked and guarded by an Air Ministry guard. Also at other areas in the country where UFO information has been stored. It is apparently the most sensitive subject within the intelligence world here in the United Kingdom as well.
You've spoken about your own experience with aliens and about others, and one word that has come up quite a few times has been spiritual.
Yes. Well, I think there are spiritual and religious possibilities here, profound implications for the human race. If we are to believe religious records, including the Bible, there have been visitations going on for thousands of years of beings who came down from the sky. Sometimes it's described in Genesis. They mated with the sons of men. I think it's described quite graphically. The sons of God came down, saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and produced offspring.
Listen, I've had everyone from David Icke and the Reverend Ian Paisley quoting from the Bible on this show, and anyone can quote from the Bible and draw what they want to from
I agree with you, and I wasn't there. I have no idea whether it happened or not, but these are the descriptions people have apparently given.
All right, well, why did you feel more spiritual after you'd had your liaison with the shaman?
I have no idea. All I can say is it was an inspiring experience.
Why are we here?
But it's not something I can document. Okay. Why are we here? That's a very good question. What are we doing here?
Well, why are we here then?
I have no idea.
Well, you must have had hearsay. You've had enough hearsay so far. You must have been, these aliens are communicating to us in some way. One of these aliens, or several of these aliens, must have given some clues.
They indicate that there have been various genetic corrections in the human species over a period of tens of thousands of years. Progressive, corrective
What do you mean by that?
corrections.
Genetic corrections.
That genetically the human species has been upgraded. Now, I'm not in a position to say that's true.
Darwinism out the window then, isn't it?
Well, apparently, if it's true, certainly. And if you look at the descriptions of some of these beings, they are remarkably similar to human beings, albeit highly evolved, some of them at any rate, spiritually, and all of them certainly evolved at a technological level. There's no question about that. And if you look at Jesus, for example, now this is highly controversial stuff.
Go ahead.
I agree, but Jesus
day.
claimed on 2 occasions that he was not from this world. If you look at the Star of Bethlehem, it's an interesting story. Whatever else it wasn't a star because it guided apparently the wise men to where Jesus was born. You have Jesus' apparent ability to conquer death. You have the angels who appeared not long afterwards, and the apparent physical ascension into heaven. Later on, you have the appearance in the sky of a blinding light, which temporarily blinded some centurions, including Saul of Tarsus, I believe his name was, who was subsequently converted when a voice claiming to be Jesus spoke out of this light in the sky. These are classic examples. There are many others I could cite, like Jesus' extraordinary abilities, alleged abilities, walking over water, his healing abilities, and certainly his telepathic abilities, which accord well with some modern-day descriptions of alien visitors.
Well, the alien visitor who went to that doctor didn't have healing abilities, otherwise he'd have healed himself, wouldn't he?
There was nothing wrong with him. The doctor confirmed to me there was absolutely nothing wrong with him, apparently. And the physical examination was just a cover for imparting information of a scientific and spiritual nature.
And it's not just the British government, the American government, and the Russian government. You make mention of the Belgian government in the book as well.
Well, in Belgium, the most extraordinary developments have been occurring since late 1989. There have been over 2,600 reports of huge triangular-shaped or rectangular-shaped craft seen by not just many citizens, but dozens and dozens of police officers on patrol who've been chasing the things. The Belgian Air Force has cooperated with a local UFO group in Brussels. They've chased these things. The Belgian Defense Ministry last year openly admitted that they had had highly advanced unexplainable objects in their airspace, which their pilots had chased. On one occasion, one of the objects shown on the radar film dropped from 2,000 meters to 200 meters in the space of 1 second. Also last year, the Russian Defense Ministry acknowledged that 10 days prior to that incident in Belgium, they had had similar experiences north of Moscow when planes were sent up to intercept.
All right, these UFOs then, they are merely top secret, top-of-the-range aircraft, new technology?
No, I think it's more complicated than that. I think some of them are state-of-the-art, highly advanced technology from elsewhere.
Well, look at the stealth bomber, which was used extensively in the Gulf War. That looks like a UFO, doesn't it?
Well, actually, the stealth fighter, it was a fighter bomber, to be specific. Yes, it does indeed. This is a remarkable aircraft, and there's no question that the Americans are testing even more unusual aircraft. In the Nevada test site, for example. The question is, have they actually recovered alien vehicles? My information is, yes, they have, and they are experimenting with them. and they have been doing so for a long time, and they are beginning to understand some of the technology involved. We're talking about...
Why has it taken so long if it's been since the 1940s?
Because the technology is so advanced that it's taken them a long time to grasp it, to begin to grasp it. Now they are beginning to understand it.
They could grasp it if they've got examples of it before them, can't they? And people
yes,
to
they
explain
can grasp
it,
it.
or aliens to explain it to them.
Indeed. They can grasp it and look at it, but it's taken them a long time to understand the effects of the propulsion system. For example, according to Bob Lazar, this physicist who actually worked on one of these vehicles, there is the possibility there for bending time and space distortion. And there is the possibility for almost instantaneous travel to distant parts of our galaxy. I'm not saying that's happened. According to my information, these craft at the moment have only been flown within a very limited range.
Where do these people come, these aliens come from?
Well, according to one of the 120 briefing papers that Bob Lazar claims to have read at this ultra-top secret site in the Nevada desert, some of them at least are from Zeta Reticuli, which is a binary system, a two-star solar system, about 37 light years from Earth. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
I don't know anything about astronomy, but this binary...
Oh, yes. There's no question about that. Zeta Reticuli exists.
And you say in your book there's at least 9 species of aliens.
Well, I don't say that. That was some information that was passed to me via a national security agency expert who said that they had established communications electronically with 9 different groups of extraterrestrials. It's outrageous stuff, but I think if you look at the reports going back over the years, there do seem to be at least a dozen or half a dozen species of extraterrestrials that have been coming here.
Has a deal been done? Is there a quid pro quo in that they say to the governments, don't expose us and we'll carry on doing our experiments and we'll give you a little bit of technology? Is that possible?
I think so. I don't believe that a deal has been signed. I think that's absurd because we're not in a position to argue with these people should they get shirty. But I do feel that in exchange possibly for bases on this planet, I do feel that some of them have bases here. They have supplied us with some new technology, including actual alien vehicles. I know it's wild stuff, but that's what I've been told from very reliable sources.
In a minute. It's 11:20. Tim Good with me, author of Alien Liaison, The Ultimate Secret, who's given us some extraordinary claims tonight that governments have known about and even worked with alien beings who have landed and have alien spacecraft, otherwise known as UFOs, under guard, and have even had some technology passed on to them. It's difficult to believe.
Yes, I agree entirely. But that doesn't mean to say it isn't true. Many extraordinary things were first ridiculed. If you take atomic energy, microchip technology, flight.
This is the biggest yet.
I think this is the biggest yet. This is the story of the millennium, no question.
Will it come out this millennium?
I sincerely hope so, and I'm working towards that end.
You're working, I mean, I know you're traveling to the States very shortly.
Yes.
And meeting people in the Senate so forth who are involved in this.
Yes, I am.
A lot of money is being spent by the U.S. government. You can say as an incontrovertible fact, a lot of money is being spent by the U.S. government on UFO research.
Huge sums of money are being set aside in what are called black budgets. Those are black budgets which officially do not exist. And senators and congressmen do not have access to what the money is being actually spent on.
Presidents know about it.
Yes, they do. Particularly presidents like George Bush, because he's a former director of Central Intelligence. Also,
so that man who comes on the television and is so reasonable and says, watch my lips and all that stuff, he knows about UFOs and has possibly seen an unidentified flying object that has landed. He's very...
I don't know.
Very possibly
I think it's quite likely, yes. I think he's seen one of the recovered vehicles. Now, it's interesting also that North American Aerospace Defense Command, otherwise known as NORAD, actually tracks these things every single day, in addition to tracking thousands of conventional space objects. According to Bob Exler, this NASA engineer friend of mine, he visited a secret NORAD facility in the Gulf of Mexico, where he was shown UFOs being tracked, and some of them apparently landing. This was on a huge screen, and the UFOs were not labeled UFO or flying saucer or anything. They were labeled ASC, which apparently means alternative spacecraft. So clearly, the American defense authorities are spending huge sums of money on tracking and monitoring these things as well, on a daily basis.
I suppose the reason could be that if we were told, or if we knew about aliens, it undermines the very fabric of our hierarchical system.
Absolutely.
If we think the people leading us, and they are infinitely inferior to these beings.
Yes, I think it could lead to an almighty inferiority complex.
Exactly.
Which is why it's best that this information comes out very gradually. We've got to come to terms with it eventually. I think even most skeptical astrophysicists acknowledge that there have probably been visitations in the past. They may think they're out of the question at the moment, but certainly in the future we are going to come into contact with alien beings.
Speculation in the book, talking about presidents, President Eisenhower met an alien.
In 1954, the story goes, according to a man called Gerald Light, who subsequently wrote a report about it, Eisenhower was spirited away during a vacation in Palm Springs in California one night, and actually was taken to a hangar at what was then called Muroc Air Force Base, where he was shown a number of extraterrestrial vehicles. Now, that's a wild story, but it's interesting that Gordon Cooper, the astronaut and ex-pilot, ex-Air Force pilot, who himself has chased flying saucers, metallic flying discs, when he was back in 1951, when he was in Germany, he's confirmed that when he was director of the flight test school at Edwards Air Force Base, which used to be called Muroc, where Eisenhower is alleged to have met these beings, he says that a flying saucer actually landed outside the base and was filmed by one of his camera crews. He didn't see the flying saucer land, but he's seen the film, and he said it was absolutely the real thing.
Government's getting very touchy about this, obviously, and very sensitive.
But understandably.
For the reasons that we've underlined,
It is highly embarrassing to have to admit even some of these facts. And the admission of just a part of what is going on here is going to open the floodgates, precisely. It's going to lead to a deluge of embarrassing questions.
So people like yourself, like Bob Exler, like Lazar, Bob Lazar, and he's given you a lot of information. These guys who are physicists and ex-NASA scientists have given you a lot of information.
Bob Lazar was threatened when he first made public disclosure, but quite anonymously, by the way. I mean, but his voice could be heard, but his face was blacked out. Back in March of 1989, he was threatened over the telephone. His wife was threatened. He was shot at and nearly had a very serious accident because his back tire and back brake were...
They were just trying to get him to back off.
Yes. But he says that now he's come out with the information, there's really very, very little they can do except deny it if faced with a deluge of questions.
So are you starting this process?
I like to think that I'm a part of it. I'm calling their bluff. We keep getting these intimations from authorities that they're going to release information. This has happened about 2 or 3 times in the past.
People like you pressing and putting pressure on.
Well, I hope it will facilitate the release of information at a public level by the sort of stuff that's in my book.
And
I hope so, anyway.
Do you think it'll all come out by the year 2000?
I sincerely hope so. I'm not a prophet, though.
Well, Tim Good, thanks for coming in.